Disclaimer. To the Pharisees and Karens out there.
How dare you!
All guests on this show do not reflect the opinions of the host. The purpose of this show is to have interesting conversations, stretch our minds, and grow.
Not what we want!
If you are looking for an echo chamber, viewer and listener discretion
is advised.
You talk about extreme.
What is happening and what is up? Hold out your glass, because we're about to fill it up.
All things continually lead back to serpents, dragons, fairies, Nephilim, and fallen angels.
In the distance looms a mystical mountain.
As Mike Heiser used to say, if it's in the Bible and it's weird, it's probably important.
At its peak, a great fire burns, concealing the Prometheus lens.
This development of this knowledge that's being talked about within the mystery schools.
An ancient artifact said to reveal the hidden truth within a deliberately darkened world.
There's a hidden history that's been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world.
Join us as we travel and explore the vast unknown. It's a hero's journey with dragons to slay, damsels to save, and innumerable treasures to hoard. Torches high.
The Smithsonian, they caught wind of a giant skeleton, would send their agents out to get it.
But it takes courage to move forward, to move out of the shadows, out of the unreality that we think of as reality.
We are all on the hero's journey.
Mankind has been in contact with and influenced by extraterrestrials.
Leave the Sitchin mound of bull feathers out of it.
You know, look at it from a different perspective.
Hey, what is happening and what is up? Hold out your glass, because we are about to fill it up. If you are within the sound of my voice, this means you are an all-access pass holder. And from the bottom of my heart and the team, thank you for keeping the boat afloat. And 'tis the season, so Merry Christmas from us and the team. But if you are not here right now, you are going to be kicking yourself because you are missing out, because we are about to have a great conversation. It is that time of the month. It is the members Q&A, and we are here with Charles Michael from Human Origins Revealed. And man, we had a great episode with him just not even 2 months ago, and just had a great response. And we had like over, I think it was like 12 or 1300 views within like 48 hours, and had all kinds of emails, all kinds of people reaching out. And man, you got to have this guy back on. I have so many questions, and there's just, weeks of material here, Justin. Get this guy back on. So I reached out and asked him if he'd come on and do a Q&A with my paying members, and he graciously agreed. So here we are. But Charles, thank you for taking the time to come and hang out with us.
Yes, thank you for having me, my friend. I'm grateful for your time as well. Everybody, thank you.
Well, me and you, we've had many conversations, and we've talked on the phone and at length, but I want to not be greedy with the time. And if any of the guys that are here and took the time out of their schedule to hang out with us tonight, if they had any questions or wanted to pick your brain on any of the things they heard on the episode or heard us talk about, I want to turn over the floor to them.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good with any of that too. You'll learn it. I'm not working off notes generally. All this stuff's memorized. So yeah, any of those things that you've learned about, and yeah, you tell me when. I'm here to maximize your time and answer your questions. So yeah, you let me know, and I'm ready for whatever I can do.
I was hoping I could jump in and just ask you to do a little background information, like where you're located, what got you interested in this topic, and what engages you and keeps you going.
Well, if it's okay, real quick, then I'll cover, that will tell you how I found it, how this started, if that's okay. Might take a minute or maybe 2 or 3 minutes. I My father and mother passed away close together, 2011, 2013. That it shouldn't be too much of a surprise. That can be a real paradigm shift. And it was. My father, I inherited a $5.5 million estate. My father's ex-girlfriend and my sister, I think, were going to drag me to the ground over that money. So in 2014, I gave that estate away, and that included the house I lived in. My sister was kind enough, because I gave it to my sister and my dad's ex-girlfriend. It's still a running estate. You can look it up. It's legal, and gave it away. And so those two people took control of that. And I kind of feel like I got my life back, but I gave away my house. My sister gave me my house back. So I moved out. Then she gave it back. So in about 2 weeks, I moved back in. And, it wasn't fun for my wife. We had a bunch of kids. We have 6 sons, my wife and I. And so we're going through all of that. Took me a little time to get her settled in, a week or so. And then I had to go back out to the water to pray. And I went back out to this spot where I've been taught by my grandparents and great-grandparents to go. And that's the thrust of what I do, is protecting this site now. We'll get into that. Went back out there to pray. You'll find about this site that it's written on the internet. If you go out there, you'll meet people that tell you, I don't know why I come here. I come here to talk to my husband that I lost, or to my grandfather. You just go there yourself, and you're going to meet people that tell you it's really surprising that it hasn't gotten out already. I'm grateful that it's waited till now. I've been doing this 10 years, by the way. That this is over 10 years ago that I'm telling you this story from. And so I go back out to this place. I'm standing out in the water, basically praying that God would give me something back that had purpose, like my grandmother, like my grandfather. My mother worked with people with Down syndrome and MS, and always helping people with special needs. And I wanted something that was more purposeful. And, begged, because I had just given everything I worked for away, hoped that my wife wouldn't leave me, to tell you the truth. I'm being honest with you. I was afraid of a lot of things. And I don't know how long I stood out in the water, but I stood there long enough that I was crying to the point I couldn't see. I opened my eyes, I looked to the right, and I was pretty convinced I saw my mother sitting over there on the beach right across from me in a chair. And so I turned around and went back in and went over to that side and walked out to the spot where I thought I saw her. When I came over the dune, naturally, she wasn't there. But I walked out to that spot and stood in the water where I thought I saw her in the water. And I stood there for a little bit, just kind of in communion with my mom. If you have more questions, I'll answer that too, about the details. But just kind of talking to my mom. I miss my mom. I still do today. But I missed her a lot that day. And I don't know how long I stood there crying over her. But when I turned around to walk back in, I stepped on the first piece. So you're standing on sand. It was odd to find a stone. I picked it up. Now, once I picked it up, I walked back into shore. One of my sons said, I saw something like that, probably 15, 20 feet away on the other side of the beach where I was. We went over there and found the second piece. And so that's how I got involved. I had just took a leap of faith, gave away everything that I had worked for in my life, because it was really killing me. It was dragging me to the ground. And then I find this. Now I'm going to help explain to you how important it is. But I took it to the state, took it to the University of Delaware. They were unanimous that in Kent County, Delaware, there was no such thing as a rock from Kent County. It is a coastal plain. So any rocks there were brought there by humans. Different times, could be ancient times or present times, they said, but you've got to figure out how that got here, because you can see, they're gemstone. They're not supposed to be laying around on a beach. So University of Delaware, it was Dr. Billy Glass was the first mineralogist, geologist that looked at it, explained to me that this one piece is about 28 pounds that I took to him. And he said, yes, definitely shouldn't be here. We started to guess where it's from, because there's a serpentine belt from Maryland all the way up into Canada. And that's basically where he said, the fun begins, Charles. You got to figure out how this got here, where it came from. And so that tells you how I got started. I had to fight with archaeologists at first, because 96% of the archaeologists in this country are not allowed to even evaluate my artifacts, and it makes them angry. And that's because you have to go to be educated on each individual stone, how it was worked, in order to evaluate it. And so at the beginning, naturally, when I come walking in with 90-pound gemstone heads, it was a little eye-opening to archaeologists. It was scary. And so at first they just tried to admonish me, and laugh me out. Along the way, I made friends with the Smithsonian, who has passed away now, but Dr. Dennis Stanford. He was very kind to me. He's the gentleman who introduced Solutrean theory, or the Atlantic ice bridge crossing theories. And he was supportive. He said, Charles, man, you got an uphill battle, but you got to figure this out. And so that's where I'll give you my title. I became an avocational archaeologist. I do some formal training, but I do not seek degrees from universities because, like anybody that's in the oil industry or a police officer, lots of different jobs, you have continuing education. With archaeology, you don't do so much of that. And me, I'm educating myself in other systems from all over the country every day, where in general, an archaeologist gets paid by an institution or an institution. We'll just leave it there. And they generally carry out the work that the institution needs them to do. And so there can be bias there, and there is bias there. So I carry the title of avocational archaeologist, which means I educate myself in which way I see fit. I've been offered some honorary degrees, but I'm not going to accept any of those because that would kind of be hypocritical. It's saying I didn't get educated, but if you'll give me a free degree, I'll take it and hang it up there. But this way it keeps me independent, and I'm not seeking work, because when you hear about the size and scope of the collection, the site, what's still left to be collected out there, this is a lifetime's work, if not more. It might be 2 lifetimes work. It might be 2 lifetimes work of 50 people. I don't know. And so that's why I took that title of avocational archaeologist and carry it. So that's what I am. And naturally, in turn with that, you got to take researcher, because of all the historical nature of what we do here, because we're 10 years in, you have to deal with all the associated culture and have respect to all the tribes in the area. So once I got into this and found artifacts, that's when naturally we sought to seek out whose they would be. And so that's where we are today, is knowing, as we introduce this to the world, there are certain genetic markers. The gentleman that you saw in the picture before we got started, he has a bump on his nose. Well, that happens to be the same bump that Mark Antony had. They call it the aquiline or Roman nose. So these carvings are so detailed that you actually can recognize genetic features that differentiate us by locale. And so, that picture that we saw earlier, that's just a demonstration of the new things that are going to come to light. Not to mention that gentleman was dated from 20,000 BCE to 8,000 BCE. That means that's the soil that encompassed him where he was buried. He was made before that. Who is that? Why is he so important that he's on more than one thing? These are the kind of questions that we're going to trigger once we get the artifacts out into the forefront. And thank you for listening to all of this, because that's basically the job. That's what I'm doing now. I have to advocate for the artifacts. The 5 federally recognized Lenape tribes, 3 of those work together here in America, if you didn't know that. So for the first time in 300 years, you have tribes coming back together, and they all support me as the steward. And it's been kind of my job for about 7 years with their approval to come to what we're doing right now. And that's to understand enough that we can start sharing it with the world. So that's my job 7 days a week.
Now, when you mentioned that that archaeologist that you first hooked up with, or that mineralologist, and you said something about a serpentine belt going to Canada. What exactly is that you're referring to? I'm clueless to that.
Great question, and very important. And I'll try to compact this as quick as I can. Now, each one of these points, we could talk an hour digging into each point, but I'm just going to skim across the top for you to answer it like a Horus type perspective. That the earth and how life started. A few things to throw at you. If you didn't know it, that all life on earth started by a serpentinite vent. So not human life. The first life on earth started by a serpentinite vent. That's where the hydrothermal environment was correct for life to start. And serpentinite is key to life on Earth. If you didn't know, in the search for other planets, serpentine is the mineral that, and life on other planets, I'm sorry. While we go to other planets looking for life on those planets, the mineral that we're looking for is serpentine. So if you look it up, serpentine is at the center of search for life on other planets. So it is key to life on Earth. If you didn't know, our tectonic plates wouldn't work without it. That's the lubricant of the plates. And the oxygen that's in the artifact that I just showed you, we have that verified. But we've put them in a vacuum. And if you put in carbon dioxide, the stones release oxygen. They're made of oxygen. They're magnesium silicates, many molecules of oxygen in there. So when you heat them up eventually, and they do break, they break out into oxygen, lots of oxygen and other minerals. That's their content. So that serpentine belt goes from the Chesapeake Bay, which is the largest impact basin in North America. It is 3 times the size of number 2. It is huge. That is, now try to remember, 13,000 years ago, the water was 400 feet roughly shallower. So the Chesapeake Bay wasn't a bay. It was a basin. The capital of the most powerful country on earth, the United States of America, happens to sit right on the edge of that basin over a river that flows right down into there. Okay. The Chesapeake Bay, at the top of that, where Maryland is where the serpentine belt is exposed. And it goes all the way through Pennsylvania, all the way up into Canada. If you look up BC jade is the fine material that's a lot like ours. It's all the way up there. We have a bunch of different stones that come from Labrador, Brahma, Chert, a bunch of things. But we know that we also have green stones. These people respected this serpentinite belt, and that's part of why we know they're advanced. Why are they collecting a stone that we're just figuring out now is at the center of life starting on Earth? And now that we're searching for life on other planets, it's the stone we're looking for when we do that. So that's how key it is. And we're just figuring that out. These people were collecting it in its purest form. And it looks like all the way up the serpentine belt that goes from Maryland, from the impact basin. It wasn't a meteor, it was a bolide. So underneath the Chesapeake Bay is the oldest seawater on Earth. If you look up, that's another article that we can go into if you want. But they drilled to the bottom of the Chesapeake Bay in 2012 to find oil. They found fluid. When they pumped it up, it turned out to be the oldest seawater on Earth. So if you didn't know it, the first saltwater impact that penetrated the crust and left underground water happened at the Chesapeake Bay. The oldest river system in the world, we know now, is the Susquehanna River, which flows down into the Chesapeake Bay and right across all this serpentine and limestone. So on Earth, the first river system that could support life is all along this. So where life would have formed is along this serpentine belt, and the first water on Earth, all of these other important things are right there. So that belt, you have material. I have material here that's actually from different places in it, but the people obviously went all up and down it and collected, because here in Delaware at the main site, we have different parts of that belt, and I've visited most of them. We have the Maryland stuff. We have the Chester, Pennsylvania stuff from the Woods Mine. We have BC jade. We have the kind of jade that they find. I think that's from Vermont or something like that, the other one that we have. So obviously this ancient civilization that was in North America, they went all along that belt. And if you look up why Native American sites, they say, are always associated with heavy metals like platinum, they're finding platinum, all over these ancient sites. What seems like ancient people went to where the life was, and it appears in this case, because of the bolide or whatever that it was, and this being an old river system, it seems natural that the first civilizations might develop near the first water. But the serpentine belt is important because when that was continental and oceanic crust, and the oceanic crust was being subducted underneath the continent, underwater, that's apparently where the first life on Earth started. So it's highly probable and being solved by science now that the first life on Earth started somewhere along that serpentine belt that's in America, from Maryland to Canada. And that's just a bunch of different topics in there. Did you see that? And there's articles that go with each one. And I can dig deep. Most of that stuff I have memorized, but these are just titles. He's recording this, so you can go back and get each one. This is going to start to stack up the overwhelming science that says the first civilization on Earth came from where these artifacts come from.
Hey guys, you found yourself at the end of the line, and this means that you're not an all-access pass holder, so I gotta play the Gandalf here and slam it down and say, you shut up. But hey, if you'd like to join us on the hero's journey and get the rest of this episode, and not only this episode, you get 48 hours early to every single episode in the future, and gain access to an entire library of members-only content, access to the private Facebook community, and monthly Q&As with authors and speakers and researchers that I've had on the show. Head on over to PrometheusLensPodcast.com and sign up. It's quick, it's easy, and I'm only asking you to sacrifice a Happy Meal once a month. You're without an excuse. Homeless people come up with $5 to $10 a day for their addictions. Nobody's that hard up. Torch is high, guys.